All right, Akbar.
What's going on?
How's it going?
Alhamdulillah. How you doing, my brother?
Alhamdulillah, man. I'm doing all right.
How's everything been? How's your week been? I know you've been in PI planning this week, actually.
That's exactly right. Yep. It is the most intense week of the year, and it only happens once a quarter.
Sure.
So like every three months, essentially.
Sure.
But yeah, it definitely gets really intense during PI planning.
Can you give, I'm sure a lot of people listening in probably don't understand what that even means. Like, can you give like a little bit of a breakdown as to what is PI planning and how does that even relate to your role as a product owner?
Absolutely. So PI planning. So there's a type of Agile that's called SAFe, which is scaled. It's like Agile applied at scale.
Sure.
And there's honestly like different schools of thought. There's some, like, for example, CSPO is a certification that's by Scrum Alliance.
Sure.
POPM is a certification from Scaled Agile.
Sure.
Now, the CSPO people, they're going to tell you, don't listen to the POPMs and don't listen to Scaled Agile. You can apply Agile at scale using the Scrum Alliance model, like traditional Scrum. Whereas POPM says, hey, like, these are just tools for you to use for your benefit. As long as it's benefiting you, great. And if there's anywhere that you need to improve to fit, let's say like enterprise, larger scale,
sure,
then there's no issues with that. So it's kind of like an alternative way of doing it. And it kind of all focuses on release trains.
Sure.
So you have like multiple groups of people. So at the base unit, you have the Agile team.
Yeah.
An Agile team will have a few developers. You might have some business analysts. You might have some QA people. You might have some UI UX people. You might have a architect, systems architect, and then a product owner and a scrum master. That's like your Agile team. That's like the base unit. And then when it comes to having multiple Agile teams that are working, let's say, congruently, right? Not necessarily on the same project. They could be working on different projects, but like within the same realm, right? That would be considered like one Agile release train.
Nice.
Okay. And then in huge, like multi-million-dollar corporations, like large enterprise, you'll have multiple release trains that are working hand in hand.
Nice.
So that's kind of the whole concept. Now, PI stands for program increment. And then the increment is the 3 months. So every 3 months, you're kind of doing some planning ahead of time. And you're essentially committing to the objectives that you're looking to implement that month.
Sure.
So just to break it down, I know there's a little bit of jargon there in what I just said. The business has objectives. They want to get certain things done. And ideally, there's a list of things that they're thinking in their mind they'd like to get done in this quarter, in this upcoming quarter, right? Now, those business objectives can't just be handed over to a developer because what's the developer going to do with just the business objectives? They need, they need it in the Agile way in order for them to be doing it in the Agile method of like picking it up in sprints, picking up user stories and whatnot.
Sure.
Like as a product owner, you'd be taking those business objectives. This is like the root or the core of like what you do as a product owner. You'd be picking up those business objectives and understanding like the business side of things of what's needed exactly and what the requirements are and what would be needed in order for that objective to be fulfilled.
Right.
And it's not you alone. People get scared. They're like, oh my God, I'm not so like tech savvy. How am I going to know like XYZ?
Right.
It's not you alone that has to create these user stories. You can do it in consultation of your developer. Maybe your system architect is definitely a key person if you have one on your team.
Right.
Because they kind of build out the blueprint. They do the architect just like a real life architect.
Right.
A system architect is like building the blueprint that the developers who are like the builders are going to actually build.
Right.
So a good analogy, Akbar, that I like to use is imagine you have a bunch of builders and you're like, I want you to build me a house, 2-story house.
Right.
They're going to say, what are you talking about?
Right.
Give us a blueprint of like, what do you mean 2-story house? There's like 1,000,001 ways you make a 2-story house.
Yeah.
we'll make you a 2-story house, but at the end of the day, if you're not happy with it, you're the one that didn't give us a proper instructions on what to do.
Right. You could have a basement and a first floor, and technically that's 2 levels.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, you know?
Technically speaking, you got 2 levels right there.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, someone that's managing that project is working with an architect.
Yeah.
The architect is building a blueprint.
Right.
From the blueprint, so that blueprint is typically called a SDD, Solution Design Document.
Sure.
So that document has the design architecture of like what it needs to look like.
Yeah.
So then you're going to take that solution design documentation and turn it into epics.
Yep.
And turn those epics into user stories.
Yep.
That's like actionable things, like
items,
what to do, right?
And that's your checklist right there.
Yeah,
Creating the house. Yeah.
Because in the user stories, you have things called acceptance criteria.
Right.
So the acceptance criteria is, if it's written well, there's no way that you're not going to achieve your desired result.
Right.
Because a good acceptance criteria is, letting the developer know before he even hands it off to you.
Right.
This is my checklist to make sure that I'm doing it legit, I'm doing it right. If I'm not hitting these acceptance criteria, I'm not even going to throw it over the fence. I'm not even going to give it to you.
Exactly.
And then you have the QA that get involved after the developers hand it over. Then the QA is kind of the police, kind of the checks and balances, right? The legislative branch, like
right.
Not legislative, the executive branch, right?
Right.
Where essentially it's like actually like checking to make sure that the acceptance criteria are being met.
They're validating if the house is built by the blueprints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In accordance to the blueprints, or in accordance to the acceptance criteria, which are derived from the blueprints.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, totally.
So with that being said, so when you're doing PI planning, so I guess that's kind of the base knowledge you have to know to be able to understand what's going to be said next, right?
Right.
So with that all being said, during PI planning, you're looking at, hey, what is the business hoping for us to achieve? Okay, and then you are bringing that to the team, and you're refining with the team. It's usually a 2-day event. Some people do 4 half-day events. It equals 2 work days. And as a team, you're estimating, you're understanding, okay, like this is an objective, but what's it really going to take to get it done? Out of the objectives, like the product owner would have a good understanding of priorities.
Right.
Like if there's something that can, let's say there's a large piece of work that if the team gets started on it, they'll get tied up for, let's say, a month, right? But you have another thing that's a smaller piece of work, right? And both of them have similar deadlines or milestone dates, right? So logically speaking, you try to get the smaller piece of work done first before getting them tied up, because at least you'll be secure that we're meeting the milestone for that.
Sure.
And now they're getting started on the larger piece of work. These are like common sense types of things in terms of prioritization a lot. And a lot of these things you can get priorities from stakeholders.
Yeah.
So the people that are actually affected by the work, you can get an understanding from them and then make those decisions or those judgment calls. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
So what's the objective of coming out of PI planning? Like, what do you achieve? So what you achieve is a commitment that you then give to the business that, here are the objectives that we are committing to, and here are the objectives that we had to defer, right? Because there's no room in our plan. Then there's a phase in the PI planning process where the business, they do a draft review. So, they'll review what your conclusions, and they'll either give you the sign off, like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Or they're going to say, no, that's not possible. Even that, if they say that's not possible, now we got to start talking trade-offs.
Right.
Like, okay, if that's not possible, then what do we need to adjust here?
Right.
Because something's got to give. You can't just put pressure like it has to get done. Like, if the team's telling you this is a team of qualified professionals that you hired because they're legitimate professionals. If they're telling you it can't get done, then it can get done.
Right.
Right. We have to then negotiate, like, what are the trade-offs here?
Right.
So it's a lot of back and forth. I'll be honest, it's a lot of work. I do enjoy it a lot.
Right.
Because it really, as a product owner, kind of puts your skills to the test. And it's like the time where you shine and you're the most useful
Right.
to the entire company. Like you're extremely useful in what you're doing.
It's always a good feeling knowing that, one, your job is actually making a difference and that your word has some meaning and power behind it.
Right.
Which is why I always tell people, like, if they're looking for something fulfilling, like, you will feel fulfilled in this role versus something more as a business analyst, for example, right?
Right.
Business analyst, a lot of the times you're doing a lot of the dirty work, but you won't get that same recognition.
Yeah.
Versus a product owner you're less boots on the ground, but now you're the general. You're the general of the army, and the business analysts are the actual soldiers, right? So you get the recognition, you get the stars on your chest.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, man. And without going into too much detail, in terms of like fulfillment and whatnot, if people have a preference for a certain industry and they kind of want to specialize in that industry, that's also very fulfilling.
Yes.
Because when it comes to like healthcare, for example, yes, you're not like on the front lines, like you're not the first line of defense as a healthcare worker in terms of like being a nurse or a physician or something like that.
Right.
But you are part of the infrastructure that makes it all work.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if it weren't for you, right, a lot of these processes wouldn't be able to happen without a hitch. Technology is playing more of a frontline role nowadays when it comes to like the healthcare sector and any sector for that matter.
Right. From my experience, so I've been in the industry since 2019. From my experience, healthcare in IT has been the only consistent industry that has not been hit with major layoffs.
Yeah.
Everything else I've seen, it was subject to layoffs, especially with COVID. And the first one to go was hospitality and transportation, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, right? But healthcare has always stayed strong and it's always consistent. And the beauty of the healthcare space in IT is once you get in, now you'll always have an industry you can get back to, because these recruiters that are recruiting for healthcare positions in IT, healthcare product owner, healthcare scrum master, business analyst, they're always going to covet you because you have the healthcare experience.
That's very true. No, 100%. I agree with that completely.
And Nabil, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're actually working on a little something for our future batches, including a healthcare mini course alongside the product owner.
That's very true. Yeah. And I've spoken to a few of the students already in terms of, I had one-on-ones with them.
Yeah.
Because they're interested in what it takes to like niche into something.
Yes.
And, a commonly recurring question is that like, I notice people think that it's a much larger lift, like it's a lot harder for you to like niche into a specific industry, when that's really not the case. There's like certain qualifications, maybe like in terms of certifications, like compliance, HIPAA compliance, for example. Any heavily regulated industry, whether it be healthcare, whether it be finance or otherwise, any heavily regulated industry, it's good to know what are the regulating bodies. And do they have any type of like certificate that I can get and just have it as like a badge, like just an extra perk on your resume or on your LinkedIn and whatnot. It goes a long way, because it then goes to show that, okay, this person cares enough about the industry that they are qualified in these certain things.
Sure.
And these aren't like 2, 3 year, 1 year, 6 month courses. These are the types of things you do over a weekend.
Yeah.
You spend a week on it, you get certified, HIPAA certified, or different types of NCQA certifications, different types of certifying bodies. If you kind of do a little bit of legwork, it goes a long way.
This.
Yeah, so having the base knowledge of product owner, product manager, and then doing a little bit of extra work, to get those types of industry-specific certifications, that's all you need. At that point, after that, it's all about experience.
Okay.
The longer you're in the industry, the more you're considered that type of product owner, healthcare product owner, product manager, and whatnot.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. That's good to hear.
Absolutely.
So let me give a little updates regarding the market as itself, the market as a whole. So I've actually, this past week and a half, I was speaking to multiple recruiters, just trying to gauge what the market is looking like. And I talked to them and I was like, hey, look, it's no secret, the past year and a half wasn't exactly an uptick in the IT industry. And like, I asked them, like, how are you seeing it now? And all of them told me, it's like, look, it's gotten much better. They have done multiple job placements for various different positions in Agile. You have product owners, product managers, business analysts, scrum masters, developers, testers. Like, the market is fixing itself, right? And that's also what we can see with our students who are on the job market is we've had multiple students now get into final round interviews.
That's right.
Whereas before, we were seeing that it was taking a much longer time for them to get responses from the job market.
Right.
Now we have individuals, multiple back-to-back final rounds, which is awesome because that means it's just a matter of time.
Right.
So, Nabil, let me segue into this a little bit, but did you hear anything about the port strikes? Were you looking into that at all?
Oh, man. I am glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's affected me profoundly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's affected me profoundly. And the reason why is because I have a 7-month-old that is on formula.
Yeah.
And he drinks a specific type of formula.
Yeah.
And dude, like Target, anywhere, like I saw multiple Targets, they're out.
Oh, man.
So I was a bit concerned, and I told my wife. She searched up, I was like, okay, no problem, we'll probably find it somewhere else. Like, there's literally not a Target in the state of Illinois.
That's crazy.
That has this formula.
Yeah.
And then my brother-in-law is in Wisconsin. So my sister-in-law checked in Wisconsin, and literally there's nothing available in Wisconsin.
That is
either.
crazy.
And it's crazy because, for kids that are, you would imagine, okay, what's the big deal? Like, there's other types of formula as well. Well, first and foremost, the strike isn't just affecting this formula, it's affecting in general.
Right. It's support.
Yeah, and guess what happens? What happens is, we saw this same phenomenon. I think I probably saw it, honestly, in my adult life for the first time during the pandemic. I was never really exposed to stuff like this. This stuff happens in third world countries.
Right.
But what ends up happening is when someone sees that there's a shortage, they start stockpiling.
Yes.
And one person is buying the capacity of like 4 people.
Right.
So that exacerbates the issue even worse.
Yeah, of course.
And you could think of them badly, like, man, what's wrong with this person? They're stockpiling. That's so wrong. There's other babies. Why are you being so selfish? But people are stockpiling out of fear that if they don't stockpile, someone else will stockpile.
Well,
so it's a mess, man. It's a mess.
I got some good news for you. The strike actually officially ended last night.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so the strike is over.
Fantastic.
But I was looking into it, and it was very interesting. So for those of you who are unaware, there was a port strike alongside all the major ports in the United States on the East Coast and some towards the south, towards Florida. And the things they were striking for was obviously better pay because you have these billion-dollar industries, these billion-dollar CEOs who... sure, they're paying their employees good, but it's fractions to what they're making, right? Mm-hmm. But the interesting clause that they also wanted implemented, which did not get approved from my understanding, is they wanted a guarantee for the next 6 years that, because every 6 years they have to renew their contract, but they wanted a guarantee that their jobs would be safe from automation. Now...
Oh, really? Wow.
What's interesting, though, is every major country in the world, including China, has fully automated their ports.
I saw a video of the Chinese,
the ports,
way they were doing it. That's unbelievable.
So it's very interesting that
this is happening.
Automation is here. AI is happening.
The strikes have started.
And the thing is like, look, you either get with it or you get left behind.
Yeah.
Right? So if I was a portsman, my main goal right now would be I need to learn this technology so that I'm useful and so that I don't get left behind. Right. And that kind of segues into what we're also seeing in IT. And I'll let you take the lead on that a little bit when it comes to AI.
No, that's a good point. So that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I was not aware that was one of the causes for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with that being said, like, You know, a lot of people say that we're talking about the job market being bad, and there is some truth to that. And we are seeing companies cut back, and we're seeing layoffs in sectors. But a lot of uncertainty that's in the air is because of the fact that people aren't looking at where opportunity lies.
Yes.
So like, you know, something we've mentioned before as well is even in the worst of markets.
Yeah.
If you go to Yahoo Finance and you go to top gainers, you're always going to find some drug that just got approved or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
Even in the worst of climates or situations, there's sectors that are growing and booming.
Right.
So, you know, it goes without say that like AI is being implemented in every aspect of society, just like how you've like perfectly highlighted for us there. And the opportunity currently is, I would say, for a limited time, there is a great need for people that can implement AI into various business settings and contexts. Because, yeah, all right, we need to put AI in it. That's such a, like, a buzzword, right? But who are the people that actually have the skill sets as to what type of AI, and if we're putting AI, what value is it providing the end user? So out of all the professions, like, what's the profession that's number one goal is providing value to the end user? That's a product owner and a product manager. So the rise of AI product managers is increasing to the point where, you know, we have the University of Massachusetts that did a great job analyzing this trend and kind of giving us like key insights as to what's going on. Just to give a concept that, like, some of you might be aware, some of you might not. When it comes to AI product managers in FANG, the most coveted of them are making like over $900,000, right?
That's insane.
Yeah, and you can make the argument that, all right, well, the most coveted of any profession are making $900,000. Okay, fair enough. Then let's leave the outliers and let's look at the median, the average. And when it comes to AI product managers, the average are making over $200,000. So $200,000 to $300,000 is essentially the average.
That's crazy.
If you can be a little bit above average, you can be above $300K. And those that are being below average are making the highest that a normal product owner and product manager are making. That's like, those are the people that are drastically below average.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So let's dive into this a little bit, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to share a file with you guys. Let's see.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to add an image. Let's come to recents. And what we'll do is we'll take this study that's done by the University of Massachusetts and we'll kind of break it down.
Sure.
Bit by bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with the first one. Okay. So take a second to look at it and give me a moment while I arrange these slides. You can see it, right?
I can see it.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So what you're seeing here, this is specifically LinkedIn. So do not be confused. These aren't all the opportunities for AI product managers.
Right.
This is a snapshot. They're just trying to prove a point, a snapshot of at that time in LinkedIn. So let's look at the chart. So what you're seeing here is the number of open AI product manager roles worldwide according to LinkedIn job searches. So notice how in September of 22, there were 608. But by September 23, the number jumped to 765, right? And if you fast forward to September 24, it's close to 1,000 open roles just on LinkedIn alone. Now, what does that tell us, right? So first and foremost, it's clear that AI product management isn't just a trend. It's something that's rapidly expanding, right? So these roles year over year are increasing. So when it comes to a career, like when we give advice to students, we're always trying to future-proof their career. If you're going to sink your time, money, and investment into something, well, it should be something that has a good-looking prospect. Like imagine you're becoming a software developer for a coding language that's being deprecated, that nobody's even using, right?
Right.
So that's one thing to keep in mind here. It's not a phase or a fad. That's one thing I really want for everyone to understand and digest, right? It's not a fad, right? Because it hasn't hit us yet, frankly speaking. We're starting to see the first emergence of it being useful in different ways, right? Like GPT, for example, is the first time like software engineers have been talking about like generative, like AI and machine learning and, linear regression and all these different types of models and ways of doing AI for tens of years, decades, literally decades. But we're appreciating it now because now it's becoming useful to the everyday individual, and it's increasingly being adopted into the products that we use every day. So that's only going to continue happening because of the efficiency and like the quality of life improvement that it brings.
Right.
There's nothing that proves that point more than the fact that this iPhone 16 Pro Max, the fact that Apple decided to partner with OpenAI and integrate it directly into the phone.
Crazy.
People haven't felt the effects of it yet because it's going to be released in this fall, that functionality. But once it happens, it's one of those pivotal moments that you're not even going to remember how you were able to get things done before it. It's one of those types of situations, right? So that's one obvious trend that we're seeing here. Things are moving fast. And as they're moving, who are they going to need to actually do the implementation? It's going to be the AI product managers that are going to do something like that, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at another slide now. Let's show you this one. Okay. So this one is going to be called duration of job postings. So what this next one is showing us is there you go. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. Take a good look at this. Read. Okay, so take a moment to look at it. What it's showing you is the average time that job postings stay open in the US across different sectors. So the line you see in the dark blue represents AI roles, and you'll notice that the duration of AI job posting are often longer than other fields, particularly in comparison to IT jobs, which are marked in orange.
Yep.
All other roles are in light blue. Now, what does this mean? The fact that AI job postings tend to stay open longer tells us something crucial. There's a shortage of skilled professionals in this space.
Yep.
Companies are actively looking for AI product managers, engineers, and other AI-related roles, but they're having trouble finding the right talent.
Yep.
So this is a massive opportunity for anyone looking to transition into or advance in tech. Right? So keep in mind, this doesn't mean that you could dive directly into AI product management, obviously.
Sure.
In order for you to get into the sector, you'd have to obviously first be a qualified, certified, either product owner or product manager.
Yep.
Right? Once you have that foundation built, now you take it to the next level. Right?
Totally.
A good example is like what we had mentioned before. Like, you don't just become a specialist. Like, after high school, you don't go to like become a neurologist or like a heart surgeon or something like that, a radiologist.
Right.
You have to do medical school first, right? Right. Once you're a physician, okay, like you've passed your boards and you're good. Now you go into your residency, you go into like a specialization into a specific type of physician.
Right.
Right. You surgeon or whatever it may be. Similarly, while that takes obviously years and it should obviously, it's such a sensitive thing that we'd want for people to be trained at that degree. Now, when it comes to something like an AI product owner or AI product manager, it doesn't take that many years, like a whole lifetime of dedication to get there.
Right.
Right. When it comes to like the baseline knowledge, that's something that you can do with these types of boot camps and these types of certifications. As long as you have your associates or your bachelor's degree, you can do a certification and get your product owner or product manager. Maybe spend some time understanding what it is, building your core competency and your skill sets. And then once you're ready, like once you aren't just, let's say, a junior, you want to start progressing in the career, you go from a junior product manager, you can become like a medium or even a senior product manager. It doesn't end there. That's the beauty of it. Like at the level when you're a senior product manager, you're making already like 140, 150, let's say. Right. At that point, other professions might cap, or it might be like, all right, well, that's the ceiling now. You're a senior product management, and now you're going to make 150,
right? Which
is a very respectable amount. It's not like it's
a laughing matter.
Yeah, it's not to scoff at. I mean, we're blessed, that we're in situations like that. We're blessed that we're able to help our students to be in situations like that. But the thing that I'm trying to point out is you can then look into something like AI product management.
Right.
Right. That takes you from that 150 level to past like 200.
Right.
210, 230 at average.
You should always be looking to progress in your career.
Exactly. Absolutely. Because the whole point is like we want to spend our time wisely.
Right.
And if it's the same 8 hours you're spending, in your professional career, let's say, right? Those 8 hours should have the highest amount of leverage,
right,
for your time, right? And that's something people don't realize, that you'll have like a level 10 talent, working in a level 2 opportunity, right? That's the advice that Alex Hermosi got when he went to the conference. He went to this one conference where he was learning about like sales funnels or something like that,
right?
And he was doing horrible in that conference, and he never really did too great at like VSLs. Like, he had to take like advice from people. This is like way early in his career. Now he's an absolute master.
Right.
But at that time in his career, the dude that was leading the conference, he recognized this quality in like Alex Hermosi, that he has like the it factor. He has something,
right,
that he's going to be huge. And he told him that at that time he was running gyms.
Right.
I don't even think he did gym launch yet, or he might have. Maybe he was working on it. Maybe he was working towards it. But he was like running a physical gym.
Right.
And the guy told him like, dude, you're a level 10 talent working in a level 2 opportunity.
Right.
It was gym launch actually that he was running at that time, and that's what he was referring to. So then he went to the licensing model, the IP model.
Right.
And that kind of changed the whole game, because at that time before, he was physically flying to the gyms and fixing their marketing hands on.
Right.
And then he flipped the switch with the gym launch and went with, it was all intellectual property at that point, right?
Right.
So long story short is that you want to have the most leverage on your time.
Yeah.
That's the point we're making, right? And you want to be in a career that has the potential, $200,000-$300,000, without like, all jokes aside, lawyers and physicians, that dedicate a good portion of their life and go into debt.
Right. Tons of debt.
Yeah, tons of debt, right? Are then in a position to make
$200,000 or $300,000.
$300,000.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. You have the outliers, like, yes, certain specialization line that are making 500-600 and they deserve it without a shadow of a doubt. That's there. But the vast majority of physicians are not that, right?
Right,
The
yeah.
vast majority,
Right.
general practitioner, this and that, they're taking home like 300-400, let's say.
Right.
Just the fact that without going into debt, without dedicating your entire life, and without having to worry about boards and this, yes, there's certifications, but with the proper training, with the proper dedication, you can get those certifications.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not out of reach.
Right.
It's not putting you hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt
Right.
to be able to have a similar type of earning potential.
Right.
I mean, what is that?
The investment on yourself is absolutely insane.
Right.
Like, absolutely insane from what you're saying,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I mean, even myself, right? I was working at T-Mobile as a sales rep, back making $12 an hour without commission. With commission, I'm taking home maybe $1,500 to $2,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I did a course that was not as complete as our course that we've done. It definitely did not have the effort, but I just had to do everything. I grinded it out,
Right.
and I literally tripled, I would say quadrupled my income from what I was making. It was absolutely insane. Going from freaking $2,000 a month to $6,000. That's like, what is that?
Exactly. No, exactly. Just the fact that knowledge is the gap. That's what kills me, bro.
Right.
That's what kills me. That there are so many people out there where the only thing missing is knowledge.
Right.
Dude, knowledge, you know what I mean? Of course, we have to charge for our time and effort for all the dedication and everything that we've done.
Right.
But it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It's the way that it's being charged in universities and whatnot.
100%.
With no guarantee. What guarantee do you have?
Yeah, there's no guarantee you're going to be a doctor.
Yeah,
at the limit.
honestly, we don't really come across this often because most people understand the value of what we're bringing.
Right.
But for some people that ask us about, do you guarantee?
Right. Right.
The only way you can guarantee is if you have some under the table type of business.
Exactly.
You have people that are placed in those companies and they're faking your referrals and stuff like that.
Dude, there's so much faking that can happen. It's
no
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
The issue with that then is it doesn't last. You know what I mean?
It does
always living in fear.
It doesn't last. Like you said, you're living in fear. And the worst part is you're going to feel like you don't deserve this because you faked it all the way.
You have a chip on your shoulder always.
Right?
Yeah, you're not going to think to go for the promotion or to go for the AI product manager because you're like, hey, I'm here just by accident.
Right. I'm happy to be making $50 an hour, which is awesome.
In your mind, you're thinking, I don't even deserve this.
Right. Exactly. There you go.
You get what I'm saying?
There you go. So
it's take what you got because,
you have that imposter syndrome forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
And rightfully so. You didn't earn it,
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but yeah. So anyways, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That, university it doesn't give you any guarantees.
No, not at all.
People are going tens of thousands of dollars into debt.
I personally know I've known at least 10 to 15 individuals that tried to do med school. They couldn't get into a U.S. med school, so they had to go to the Caribbean.
Got it.
And for people that don't know about the med school situation, the people that go to the Caribbean usually have the hardest time getting residency because in terms of priority, they're usually on the lowest because it goes U.S. based, it goes international, then it goes Caribbean schools. From what I've heard, yes. And it's easier to get into a Caribbean school for med school, but the reverse is that it's much harder to now get residency.
I see.
And I personally know at least 10 to 15 people that just got stuck at that phase.
Yeah.
And they had to switch to something else. They had to switch.
Really unfortunate.
And
well, at least in Caribbean, it's a lot cheaper.
It is. It's a lot cheaper.
So at least they're not like hundreds of $1,000s in debt, but still,
sure. I mean,
life commitment that's there.
The time, the energy, and it is like you still pay 10, 15, 20,000 a semester.
A semester.
A semester.
Understood.
So,
Yeah, man. I mean, for those that are younger that haven't started their career yet, I hope this is very informative.
yeah,
And I hope like this gives a clear picture of just don't just go on someone else's advice. Do your research,
right?
Because the person that's given you advice, God knows when was the last time they've updated their information.
Right,
Like, are they speaking in a 2024 context?
right.
Or are they speaking in like a 1994, 1998 context of when they were like well acquainted with the job market?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right. Brown people always say lawyer, doctor, engineer.
Brown people, yeah.
But the unfortunate thing that a lot of people don't even understand is right now, law is so oversaturated. If you're not going to Harvard Law,
Sure.
Princeton, this, that, like these Ivy Leagues, you are going to have a terrible time finding something.
Really?
And engineers, when I was a kid, I thought engineers were making insane amount of money.
Yeah.
But it's really only the top tier that do. The average engineer does not make as much as the average product owner.
That's true, man. And that blows my mind.
Right?
You know, that blows my mind.
You go to school that long for it.
Yeah. That's crazy. Let's do one last one real quick.
Sure.
And hopefully this will drive the point home. Okay, and it comes down to the brass tacks, which is the actual pay itself. Right? So take a look at what you're seeing here. Let me see if I could adjust this a little bit.
Yes.
Here, is that clear?
That is insane. The median AI is making about, oh my God. They're making so much more than a median non-AI PM.
Exactly.
That is insane.
That's exactly right.
That's so crazy.
So let's start from the bottom. Look at the bottom 10%, right?
Right.
So if traditional PM roles, salaries are at 75, which is not bad.
That's not bad, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the low end.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolute bottom barrel.
Exactly. But when you're comparing it to AI PMs,
Right.
93, it's a significantly more.
So much more.
And that's the lowest of the low, the bottom of the barrel.
Right.
Right? But if you're looking at median, this is where it gets fun, right? So like non-PM roles 132, yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's right on the money. Of course, I mean,
right.
It's the University of Massachusetts. I'm sure they did a good job with their research, but from lived experience, we can also attest to that, yeah, that's exactly right. But then 205.
Dude, that's literally about 70K more.
Yeah, 205. That's a huge difference. That's so much more.
That's crazy.
That's so much more. That's a normal PM salary plus a bottom 10%.
Yeah.
If you combine them together,
that is insane.
On average, they're making that much more.
That is crazy.
Just to give you perspective, it's like you're earning an average PM plus a bottom of the barrel PM just as an average AI product manager.
That's insane. And the thing is again, you really don't need to be a super genius to get into this. I'm not a super genius. You're not Elon Musk, right? Like, we're in this field, we're in this career, and we got in,
Yeah.
It's just what you know.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right, man.
This is insane.
So, yeah, I would just stress the fact that you should have a goal that you aspire towards. And you should have a career that allows you to have such goals.
Yeah.
If you're a mason, you're doing masonry, and you're not interested in owning, there's two things. There's employment and there's entrepreneurship.
Right.
These are two distinct things.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is professional development.
Yeah.
That means employment.
Yep.
So if you're going to be an employee and you're a mason, right? You have what's the most you're ever going to make, dude?
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Whereas what we're trying to say with this role as a product manager, dude, the sky's the limit. And this is,
this is insane.
In demand, people need it. It's a real genuine role where you're actually helping companies implement AI in a way that makes the most sense. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to, you're going to hear us say this all the time, but it all boils down to what is the most beneficial for the end user.
Exactly.
Because if you can delight the end user, you have a fantastic product.
Right.
You won at that point.
Right.
Right.
Right. And you also need to look at your own life and think, what's the leverage here? Because the top 10%, I can guarantee you, you're not going into an office 5 days a week. You're not on a construction site 5 days a week. Most likely, you're probably either working from home or you're maybe going to the office once a week or twice a week, right? So you need to also think about, you're making $254K.
Or even 205. Forget about the outlier.
Let's look at the median.
Average.
You're making 205, and at worst, you're probably going in 3 times a week to the office.
Or you work from home.
Best case scenario, right? So, like, that's the leverage. You have all this time. You have all this wealth you can be accumulating.
Right.
And you're not breaking your back or killing yourself to get there.
That's true. You're not affecting your health. And frankly speaking, even if you don't have any extra time, like you're being worked all 8 hours, let's say, which never happens.
Yeah,
never happens.
Nope.
But let's say even if you are, and there's no concept of work from home or hybrid, which is rare. Nowadays, a lot of places are hybrid.
Sure.
Right? 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. At 205K,
it's pretty worth it.
Yeah, come on.
It's pretty worth it.
What can you ask for it, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So these are all things that we need to take into consideration, and leverage is, I think, the theme of this whole live stream, like today's live stream.
Yep.
It's all about leverage. The amount of time you're putting in, you should get the maximum out.
100%.
And if you don't find that you're in a position where that's possible, then you got to change the position. You got to change your situation.
You got to change the cards you've been dealt.
Yeah, if you're driving Uber, what are you going to do? Are you going to drive faster?
Right. Right.
What are you going to do?
Right.
Are you going to drive faster to get there faster so that you can pick up another? Well, you got to drive the speed limit or somewhere around there. Otherwise, you're going to get a ticket and go into the negative. So you get what I'm pointing? It's the opportunity that you're in, which is a low leverage opportunity that doesn't give you the ability to be strategic.
100%.
And whatnot.
100%.
So, yeah, I hope everyone understands that, change your situation. Put yourself in a place where you have higher leverage.
Right.
Where for the same amount of time, because a year is going to go by.
Right.
Right.
And I will say this, the majority of Americans are not making $75,000 a year. That is a fact. Majority of them are not. This opportunity will absolutely change your life. I can guarantee it, because it's changed my life. It's changed your life. It's changed the life of every single person I know that's in this career making 6 figures.
Right. Yeah, I think let's leave it at that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Nabu, it's always a pleasure.
Pleasure, man. All right. Take care.
Yes, sir.